What's going on, everybody? Happy July 4th, and welcome into another edition of the Better Baseball MLB DFS podcast. I am James Grande, joined today by none other than Henry 13 Wilson 13. Henry, before we get into anything, I gotta ask, where is the double 13? Are you a big A-Rod fan? Is that what it's come? Is that what the 13? I mean,
No.
I know you're a Red Sox guy first, so I know that was maybe you hoping you would get A-Rod when he originally went to the Yankees, or is that what it was?
No, not at all. Definitely nothing associated with A-Rod. 13's just always been my number, and
Okay.
Henry Wilson's a common name. So unfortunately, getting a Twitter handle is not the easiest thing always. So we get
Okay.
two of them in there.
Okay. I mean, I figured I nailed it with the A-Rod thing
Yeah,
because I
it's
know.
super close. Yeah.
Yeah, super close. Yeah, super close. Almost got it, but happy to have you here, Henry. And as we head into this July 4th slate, we're breaking down the 1 p.m. slate, as you guys can see here. 8 games on DraftKings. Um, what stands out to you upon initial look here, Henry? I mean, Colorado in Houston, so no Coors. Thankfully, I have Coors fatigue over the last week or so, considering back-to-back slates there, one including the Detroit Tigers. That was super fun. And that, I mean, not at all. Anything from the Vegas side of things stand out for you at current moment where we have like any lines or over-unders that we should take a look at?
Uh, you know, Nothing too crazy, but I do like, possibly some overs with Texas and Boston. Both offenses can
Yep.
score a lot. We just saw Texas score what they just scored 10 runs today and
Yep.
lose.
And
So
just, yeah.
obviously, those offenses can put up a lot of runs. So, maybe play some overs over there could be interesting.
Okay. I could get behind that. And let's see if there's anything else. Um Cincinnati not on the main slate, unfortunately. We have 9 implied runs in a couple spots. Nothing that really stands out, like that we really need to attack. So let's just get into it
Yeah.
right off the bat, and we'll start at the pitcher's position. And there's 4 names above 10K. There are no 9K price pitchers. There's only 2 8K price pitchers, and then there's just a lot of meh. But at the top, as you mentioned, any like who are your top tiered arms or arm on this Fourth of July slate?
Yeah, it is arm for me. It is singular Jesus Luzardo for me.
Yep.
He's been pitching absolutely amazing, and especially at that above 10K, like I'm happy to pay that for him. And compared to the others, Nola, Eflin, Senga, those prices just feel too high for 3 guys who have been okay, but not really ace level pitchers. But Luzardo, he's been an ace,
Yep.
and I'm all over him against St. Louis for this slate.
Yeah, outside of one kind of blip in the radar lately against Seattle, it's been all good. 9 strikeouts in back-to-back starts, 8 or more in 3 of his last 5, 19 plus fantasy points in 4 of 5. If this was last year, I'd call you crazy, and I think a lot of people would because St. Louis hit lefties so well, and Luzardo was good, but not this good. But we are starting to see the fruits of that of the Luzardo labor, we thought this is who he was gonna be for a while, and it just took a trade and some good Marlins team, I guess, around him to really show out. So I agree. I do think he is really the only guy up here. Philly's offense looks good. Tampa's offense has been good all year, and Senga can't pitch on the road. I will say, in Kodai Senga's defense, and not the road, because he has been just terrible on the road outside of the Pittsburgh start.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see what Arizona's lineup looks like with Corbin Carroll news just kind of still floating. Like, I think we could get something more definitive. Like, I know he entered and he had an at bat, but I guess that's good enough to say he's going to play on Tuesday. And Terry Lavolo thought so too, that he thinks he's going to play, but remains to be seen. If Corbin's in that lineup, I probably have little to no interest in Senga. What about the value tier or just anything below the 10K tier, rather? Like, what piques your interest? Because I think you and I both pinpointed one particular option. and he hadn't looked good before the injury, but has looked good since returning from IL.
Yeah, Kenta Maeda is I think a really good value play here today. He has looked pretty solid in his last couple outings. Obviously, it wasn't like huge against Atlanta, but it's Atlanta, and he survived. Like, he got positive points against the Braves. Seems like a win. And now getting to take on the Royals, like, that's a pretty solid matchup for him. And yeah, I like Kenta Maeda for this.
What a crazy concept that is. That we're happy if we're getting positive points against it. Like, and he wasn't bad. He wasn't bad by any stretch. He wasn't good. I don't even think he was on the main slate in that. No price there usually indicates he wasn't on the main slate, so we didn't even have to worry about it. Royals are just dreadful against right-handed pitching too. I mean, they've been that way. Bottom 3 or bottom 2 in every offensive category against right-handed pitching, with a 24% strikeout rate to boot. And we saw Maeda return 8 strikeouts against Detroit. So I fully agree. I think he is going to be very popular at 7,100. How about some not so popular guys? Do you have anyone? I think you and I might have a couple names that are opposing each other that might not be that popular.
Yeah, I would agree. I know you like Kyle Hendricks, which I actually like a bit too, but my favorite of the two is Wade Miley in that matchup. And obviously, Cubs are a little scarier of an offense than Milwaukee is, but I think Miley probably gives you a little more strikeout upside than Kyle Hendricks does, which is basically non-existent. And, he's put up some good outings recently. And so, probably not a super popular play, but I think it's a good pivot and really cheap today to go after Wade Miley.
My only concern with Wade Miley, and I'm just going to pull it up just to be sure, he has been the beneficiary this year of some really good luck. And I've been waiting for so long this year for the regression to come, and it just hasn't. Like 5.4 strikeouts per 9, which we knew about Wade Miley, right? Like, he'll always pitch to contact. That's not anything new. 302 ERA, 481 expected ERA, 493 xFIP. His BABIP of 231. I mean, like, there is for a guy that pitches to this much contact to just have like this good of luck just feels inevitable to run out. And you're right where there is some strike. I mean, we're both talking about two guys with like little to no strikeout appeal.
Yeah,
there's
really not going to be a lot of strikeouts in this game, but
right. But like, the Cubs do have thump, and I know, they've cooled off drastically lately, and they have a big strikeout rate against left-handed pitching specifically. It's just I have not been able to look past the expected numbers for Miley and like just be like, all right, there's just such batted ball luck here that it's going to turn. Hendricks has been interesting because he hasn't been striking guys out or like you mentioned, but he's pitched really well overall. No start this year, more than 3 earned runs. He's pitching deep into games. We even got a 27 fantasy point ceiling out of him, which again, 3 strikeouts in that outing. So like, not expecting it again. But if you were to tell me on this slate, like pivoting off Kenta Maeda, because that's obviously the chalk SP2 of the slate. If I were to get the Pittsburgh start where I get 6 1/3 of an earned run and 17 fantasy points, I'd be okay with that. And I do think there could be like 4 to 5 strikeout upside here for Kyle Hendricks. Milwaukee, 5th highest. Look, Milwaukee has the 5th highest strikeout rate in baseball. I understand. But we have 4 strikeout games from Kyle Hendricks this year. I know that's crazy to say. Maybe a better play on FanDuel all in all. Is there anyone else? That's the problem though, because the rest of the slate, where else would we go?
Like, there's not much else I like. I mean, you're not playing Greinke, Wainwright, those older guys. Like, no chance you're playing any of those. Dane Dunning against Boston scares me. Kyle Gibson after to face the Yankees. Like, what upside does he really have? Like, there's just not much else that you want to even consider.
I guess maybe Gibson, but he's coming off
Maybe,
some
but
brutal. He's coming off some brutal outings, and
yeah,
one good offense and one bad offense. He got shellacked in both. I know he had a really good outing in Yankee Stadium earlier this year in May, 7 scoreless. Yankees don't really strike out against righties. They strike out a lot against lefties. It's a 21% strikeout rate against righties. So I don't really know what the ceiling is on Gibson either. So I mean, ultimately, Maeda, Luzardo are probably the two chalk pitchers of the day, but
yeah.
just some food for thought elsewhere. Guys, before we move on to our infield breakdown, head over to rtsports.com. That is real time sports, and try out their daily pick'em contest. It's a lineup of player props, hit them all and win. They have baseball, they have golf, they have all different types of sports. It's your classic over under. Will Kenta Maeda have more than 5.5 strikeouts? Or let's say that's the line for 4th of July. But head over there, rtsports.com/alarm, and use code alarm23, and first time depositors get 100% instant deposit match up to $200. That's rtsports.com/alarm using code alarm23, ALARM23, and get up to a 100% deposit match up to $200. And please play responsibly. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's dive into the infield, Henry. With the that stuff aside, what are your top infield options here if we're spending up at the position?
So if we're spending up at the position, there's a few guys I like, and they are, at catcher, Jonah Heim. He has been fantastic this year, and I don't love paying up at catcher, but Heim against a left-hander has been unreal.
Yep.
I mean, he's been great against everybody, but especially against a lefty in Murphy. Yeah, definitely into Jonah Heim today.
Okay. He has been great against lefties. What else you got for me at the top of this?
Yeah, paying up for some more. I'd say at first base, I love Luke Raley for the Rays.
Okay.
He, price is climbing. He used to be a value play, but he's deservedly, has this price. He's been awesome. You see over 1,000 OPS over his last 10 games. Obviously, Nola's a great pitcher. They might be tough to stack the Rays against him, but he's also been fairly hittable in a lot of his games this year. So I like the power that Luke Raley gives at, not crazy expensive, but still, closer to the top today.
Yeah, and I mean, Aaron Nola has not been great, unfortunately. Not going to say anyone on this podcast predicted him to win the Cy Young in the NL this offseason, but I'm also not going to say that. And that person feels really bad about doing that such thing right about now. Right about now. I like Jose Altuve quite a bit. I know he has not been the same guy against left-handed pitching this year that he has been in years past because he's mostly hitting righties this year, and he is. I mean, the amount of lefty mashing that he has done throughout his career is like you can fill up like an entire dictionary worth, but it hasn't been this case this year. It's also a 32 game sample, and I am someone who looks at a large body of work versus a 32 game sample. It's like why I don't really believe in BVP all that much. That's a personal thing. I'm going to go to Jose Altuve here against Kyle Freeland, who has struggled mightily lately.
Yeah.
Same thing can be said about Josh Jung getting a lefty. Josh Jung has not slowed down against left-handed pitching for 1 second this year. I know he has hit a little bit of a rut recently, especially kind of like with the strikeouts. He's been striking out a ton. I mean, 18 strikeouts in his last 10 games, now up to 182 games. He's going to strike out over 200 times likely if, we continue on this trajectory. But he has been great against lefties from the start of this year. So I love Josh Jung, and I think the Texas talking piece we've already mentioned two of the infield is not going to slow down when we get to the outfield either. But before we do go to the outfield, what do we got for some of our top value options here, Henry?
Yeah, I think there's some good values of the infield as well. Catcher, I really like Yanner Diaz. he has been mashing the ball lately. Still
Yes.
super cheap
Yes.
catcher for Houston, and he just keeps hitting home runs. So
Yep.
yeah, I really like his value there today. As a cheaper pivot catcher option. Obviously, he's not crazy cheap, but for the way he has been hitting the ball, definitely worth it in this matchup. I also really like a really cheap option at second base in Harold Castro today.
$2,500.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I like this is a more risky play. Obviously, the ceiling for Harold Castro is never super high, but he's been hitting the ball pretty well, and I know it's out of Colorado, but it's facing a not the best pitcher ever either, and he's been getting hits, so I kind of like a really cheap play in Harold Castro today.
Yeah, hitting 303 against righties, and Brandon Belak, to your point, starting for Houston, 333 average for lefties, 950 OPS, 407 WOBA allowed. So lefties do have quite the split advantage against Brandon Belak. Interesting. Maybe we're gonna get to some Rockies bats here, huh?
Yeah,
So
maybe I don't
exciting getting
know.
this.
Rockies outside of Colorado, but
Yeah, I know. It's yeah,
they're
it's true.
cheap. I think the last
Yeah.
guy I really like in the infield for like good value is Anthony Volpe. He
Yep.
had been struggling a lot for most of this season, honestly, and I really was surprised that they've stuck with him and not sent him down at any point. But he has turned
Yep.
it on recently. He also over 1,000 OPS over the last 10 games, and no home runs, but he's just hitting the ball. So I really like, again, we already expressed concerns of Kyle Gibson of how much can he really do again against the Yankees. And so I like Volpe today at this price.
Yeah, and there was actually a stance switch or a mechanical issue for Volpe since the streak, and since they fixed it, it's been smooth sailing for him. So you know what? I'm happy to see the Yankees as a fan of the team. I'm happy to see them stick with their, one of their top overall prospects, one of the top overall prospects in baseball heading into the year. So yeah, I like what he has been more powerful against lefties, but what we know about it with Anthony Volpe is if he gets on against Kyle Gibson, he's stealing second base. So I like that call quite a bit. I like Ezekiel Tovar and another value shortstop and the rhythm that he's been at the plate. I know the hit streak is still active. I think it's at 13. Is that 13 or 14 games now? 15 games?
It's
Math is hard. I think it's
getting
like,
up there.
let's see, 13. I think it's 15 games. They've they moved him back down when Chris Bryant returned, and then they instantly moved him back up to second when they realized that was a bad idea because he is on a 15-game hitting streak. I'm gonna keep riding of Ezekiel Tovar. Brandon Belak hasn't really been good against righties either. It's just kind of been he's just kind of been a subpar pitcher. So I'll attack Brandon Belak. And I said it to you before we went live, and you were like, "Are you sure?" I'm gonna be playing a lot of Marlins here. So naturally, Garrett Cooper, one of the biggest boppers in their lineup, especially with Jazz down. He has flashed a lot of pop. I mean, look, Garrett Cooper has a lot of power. He just never stays healthy. Like it's not a fact of like will this guy hit home runs? It's will this guy stay in the field? He hits home runs when he's healthy, and he has 10 home runs in 63 games this year, 20 extra base hits overall. And, that's really all he does. 291 OBP, nothing to be desired, but 424 slug for a guy hitting 250, not too bad. But 1,000 OPS over his last 10 games. And, unfortunately for a all-time very good pitcher, not going to say great, very like next tier down in Adam Wainwright. It's his time has come, and when you're 40 years old and you're trying to navigate through major league lineups, sometimes that happens. So, righties hitting 325 against them, lefties hitting 400 against them. Garrett Cooper, 9 home runs against right-handed pitching, $3,200. I like Garrett Cooper quite a bit.
Love it.
Let's pivot to the outfield, shall we? Where there is never a shortage of options, especially on an 8-game slate. You and I both have Adolis Garcia written down as our top option here in the outfield. And you know what's funny? Like, for a long time, he was only really hitting righties, and he wasn't that good against the lefty split. And then he just was like, it just something turned. 224 ISO, 382 WOBA now for Adolis Garcia. Probably the head of all Texas stacks on this 4th of July.
Yeah,
Right?
I have to say that I'm really changing my tune here because I have been the biggest Adolis Garcia non-believer for like well over a year now, that he is just
Right.
not that good for fantasy. He's not going to be able to keep up these numbers, and the dude just keeps matching. And I think I need to finally eat it. I picked him today. I think he actually is a good matchup here. Love Texas lineup, so I'm finally just going to eat it and say that I was wrong. And apparently he's actually good at baseball, because I just refused to believe it for so long. I thought the wheels were going to fall off for him, but he just keeps hitting.
I mean, like, you're not wrong when a 29-year-old player just kind of, who has not been good for how many years and was never a top prospect, and he wasn't. And then at 29, you're like, oh, this guy has 30 home runs and 20 stolen bases at the end of the year. And then he does it again. And you're like, all right, well, I mean, 2 fluky years, right? Well, here we are. The stolen bases may come later. They haven't been on full display. Maybe we sneak out 15 this year. But well on our way to another, I mean, maybe the most powerful season of his career yet. 35.
Yeah.
35 home runs on the way. So yeah, he's definitely been a someone we need to study when his career is over, because at 29, entering, like, I mean, it's just been nuts since his 29 season. So after Adolis Garcia, what do we got for your top plays here in the outfield?
My other real top play here is Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo has been crushing the ball. Usually Nimmo's not a huge power guy, but he has 5 home runs in his last 10 games. So yeah, Brandon Nimmo has been crushing the ball. He's been great all season, to be fair, but he's really been getting the ball out of the yard recently. And I don't really trust Zach Davies that much at all. So yeah, big fan of the Mets here, and really big fan of Nimmo at the top of that lineup.
It's hilarious. Colby Conway and I did the last Zach Davies podcast when he pitched against I don't know who it was, and I'm just being lazy. I could just check, but he fired 7 scoreless innings. It was Tampa, and we were like, "Oh, we're gonna go crazy." It's Zach. He's been dreadful. He's been getting shelled by everyone. 7 scoreless against the number 1 team in baseball, because that's baseball, right? Yep. That's baseball for you. But he's been bad overall. Still, even with this 7 scoreless, right or left-handed bats still hitting over 300 with an 800 OPS against them. So I love your Brendan Nimmo call. Yeah,
the 7 scoreless against the Rays isn't going to change my tune for him. Like, yeah, it was a good game. He might have more good games in the future. Not going to bet on it. Like,
right. I will continue with my Marlins fandom here. Jorge Soler, the most powerful bat in the Marlins lineup. I mean, live for a home run every time he steps up to the dish. Yeah. So like I watched him hit a home run out of Coors Field this year, or out of Arizona? It was like the furthest ball I've ever seen hit in Arizona, left center field. That man has infinite amount of power. I like Christian Yelich. Honestly, this has been maybe the longest good stretch of Christian Yelich we've had in like
since he won an MVP.
Yeah. Since he won an MVP. Literally, probably correct. Like, since he won an MVP, he has been awesome. And I know I mentioned I like Kyle Hendricks, but Kyle Hendricks doesn't miss bats. And if he's not going to miss Christian Yelich bat right now, a guy hitting 385 over his last 10 games, that is an issue. Why don't we fire off some value tiers before we get to our final segment and where we build a lineup, Henry?
I think there's some great value options on the offense, as we've already kind of been talking about. One of them in Texas with Leody Taveras. He has been just fantastic hitting in the 9 hole for Texas. Great person to do at a end of a stack where you can do like a 9 to the front of the lineup stack with Texas, because he just keeps producing for them. And then we already talked about the Mets too. I love Tommy Pham today. He is still really cheap, and Pham has been crushing the ball, like unreal crushing the ball.
It's crazy.
It's
It's crazy.
ridiculous.
It is crazy to see, but you're right. He has arguably been the best player, and I'm sure that's what they were looking for out of Tommy Pham when they came into the year, right? That he'd be their best player. That was
Yeah,
exactly what they thought.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. I'll just add Chas McCormick and Brian De La Cruz, two more guys that I have a ton of interest in. Let's move on to a segment that do you have it? I'm going Grande's gems. Do we have like Henry's
Oh,
Henry's
yeah, Henry's
uh
homers is pretty good.
Henry's homers,
Sure.
and why don't we parlay that right into your home run call, and just why don't you rattle off your home run stacks and all this good stuff?
Yeah, sounds great. My home run call for this slate is going to be Pete Alonso. Already talked about the love of the Mets, and Pete's been struggling since he came back from injury, but he just hit a home run yesterday, and now we get the announcement that he is participating in the home run derby again, so he's got to warm up for it, and I think he's getting a home run. My top stack of the night, I think, is probably pretty obvious. I keep talking about it, but the Texas Rangers are my top stack. I really think that they're going to have a great game here of a lot of offense with Boston. And for my contrarian stack, I am going to go with the Phillies. Zach Eflin is one of the top pitchers of this slate, and he has been pitching great, but I just think he is hittable still, and I really like the Phillies offense. So if you want to pivot and go against one of the top pitchers, I like the Phillies.
A little revenge narrative there, by the way, too.
Yep, exactly. But we'll see. And then, for my star of the night, I'm going with my catcher pick of Jonah Heim. Again, I think what he can do at the catcher position, he is rightfully about to be an all-star, and I expect him to keep that up in this stack. And my biggest value play of the night is who we just talked about, Tommy Pham. He's crushing the ball, really cheap in the outfield, like the Mets as well, and I think he's going to be the best value play in this slate. What about
you? I love all those. I'm going to go with Adolis Garcia, top stack Texas Rangers. I'm not pivoting off of that. Me and you are lockstep there. I'm going to go Marlins as my contrarian stack. I like the Marlins here against Waino. Star of the night, Josh Jung, sticking with the Rangers theme. And value play of the night, I'm going to go Kenta Maeda because I think he's clearly the best SP2 of the slate. Henry, we have like 2 minutes, a minute. Let's build a quick lineup here. I think we should probably go Luzardo Maeda would be my guess. Would be Tommy Pham with some good value that you had listed here. I think that would be pretty obvious to get him in. Who was your home run call? Was Alonso? We could get Alonso here, 5,100. That's a good price. Jonah Heim was a catcher that you had a lot of interest in here.
Yeah.
What else do we want to do? Where's some Texas outfield value? Ezekiel Duran, or Leote,
or both Leote and Duran. You could put them.
Yeah, and just go a full value outfield. Like, is that? I'm down to play as much Texas as you.
Yeah, we both liked Altuve today at second. If we're going value outfield, we could probably afford Altuve.
We have $38.50 for a third baseman and a shortstop here.
Well, maybe you go to Young here with Heim, do the Heim Young pairing more Texas, and then you can go
and Volpe
or Tovar at shortstop. One of those.
Yeah, perfect. $0 left. Luzardo, Maeda, Heim, Alonso, Altuve, Josh Jung, Anthony Volpe, Tommy Pham, Ezekiel Duran, Leote, Taveras. That'll do it for today's Better Baseball MLB DFS podcast. We'll be back, not Henry, but I will be back at 5 p.m. Eastern with Howard Bender to break down the 5-game evening slate kicking off at 6:40. Thank you guys. Have a great 4th of July, Henry. Have a great 4th of July, FA Nation, and we will catch you guys later.